G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. Today I'm going to be going over my round 5 tips for the 2024 AFL season. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you do go in to enjoy today's video. And let's start with my tips from last week. Rightio, so my tips from Gather Round, and I managed to get myself an 8 out of 9. So pretty good score, but considering that the 1 week I don't tip every favourite goes on to win the game, so I left myself out on a 9 out of 9 score. With the against the grain tip, I did go with the Fremantle Dockers over Carlton, and oh boy, that was almost a good one to pinch, but how about that finish? Pretty controversial in the end, as the Blues were able to pinch that one in the end. But yeah, pretty much every single other tip correct. Melbourne, felt that'd be too good for Adelaide. Brisbane, pretty easy tip. Port Adelaide, felt they'd weather the Bombers' storm, and how about that after quarter time? They were dominant. Swans over West Coast. Fremantle one incorrect. The Cats, I think, would be too good over the Bulldogs, but this was actually a really good game of footy. A little bit of back and forth. GWS over Gold Coast. The Saints, I was close from going with Richmond, and halfway through this game, I was like, oh dear, I just should have backed them in, even with their outs, but the Saints really adjusted well after halftime, and the Pies thought they'd be, the team to beat over the Hawks, and yeah, another crazy close finish that was in the end. So overall, pretty good weekend of footy. Plenty of entertainment, and in the end, 8 out of 9. Okay, now a quick look at my tipping competition leaderboard update. Now, in this video, it's probably a little bit too hard to go over every single person that got every tip correct this weekend, because the video would just be going on for too long. But I'd say probably about 150 to 200 people in the comp did get every single tip correct, given that all the favourites did win. So a lot of people got 9 out of 9. But in terms of who is leading the competition at the moment, it is 𝐓𝐴𝐶 with a total score of 50. Okay, so let's kick things off with the tips for round 5. We start off Thursday night footy. The Melbourne Demons host the Brisbane Lions at the MCG, and I tell you what, this matchup's always a really interesting one, especially the past few years or so now. We've either seen some absolute blowouts, most of them in Melbourne's favour, like we did in the home and away season in 2022, and then Brisbane go on to win the semi-final, and then we get some absolute classics like last year, where Brisbane probably had this game sewn up against the D's. Then they go on to choke, concede the last few goals of the game. Jake Melksham the hero. So I think this one could be a really unpredictable game heading into this one on Thursday night. And the circumstances are very, very different, as Brisbane currently sitting 1-3 at the moment. They're not looking the absolute sharpest like they usually are. If they drop this game, could it be curtains on their season? Probably doubt it with the talent they have in the team overall. But they're just going to be chasing their tail week after week. So this is just a must-win, an absolute must-win against the Demons, which is going to be a tough team to beat. Melbourne looking like one of the most informed teams in the competition. And not only are they able to put on scoreboard pressure, which is something that they've been unable to do for the most part, just think just their team defence and overall role players are really getting it done for them at the moment. They're really good coming out of the defensive 50. Alongside that, their stars are really going well at the moment. Petrarch has been great in the guts. 𝐼𝐴𝐴 forward of centre has been class with his opportunities. Bailey Fritsch as well. Because he is going to be out this week, so that's probably most likely going to help out Brisbane. Maxi Gawn is looking like one of the best rucks in the competition at the moment. And as I say again, the role players like Chuck McVie, Kate Chandler, Alex Neil-Bullen, they're just all really contributing. They're the perfect example of a well-oiled machine, the Melbourne Football Club at the moment. So coming into this one as warm favourites is definitely understandable, but I'm pretty big on Brisbane heading into this game. I know they haven't been playing their best football, but I'm pretty sure every single one of their losses, they actually have won the inside 50 count. What's really been letting them down is just their inability to punish teams off turnover and off clearance. They've been not the greatest side going inside 50, like Danaher and 𝐓𝐴𝐴 haven't been in the greatest of form, not really getting much service from those tools. So with a bit of a soft kill win over North Melbourne, that could probably give them a bit more confidence with better execution forward to centre. So if they can really hit those targets, as always, really rate Brisbane as a side that can gain a lot of turnover and also win the midfield battle. Do like them here for a smoky tip, but when looking at Melbourne though, it is really hard to pick apart any chinks in their armour. At the moment, they are playing some really good footy, good strong team defence, good in the midfield, and they're getting it done forward of centre. But, not every single week a team is going to be playing awesome football, and I just feel like this could be the game where Brisbane could really kickstart their season. They've been able to knock off Melbourne and play good footy against them at the G the last couple of times, so I think Brisbane get up here. It's a massive against the grain tip, given 88% of people are currently tipping Melbourne. But, you know, Melbourne have actually lost the inside 50 count a couple of games now. So I think Brisbane, if they can execute Fortis Centre with that confidence-boosting win last week, they get it done. So this is a massive, massive game to kickstart their season. I reckon they get the ball over win over the D's and win by 10 points. Next up, Friday night footy, we do have the Bulldogs hosting Essendon at Marvel Stadium. Now, this matchup alone has always usually been in the Bulldogs' favour. Looking at the last 3 head-to-heads, the Bulldogs have won all their games by over 5 goals, and this was a smashing last time these two sides played. So most likely we could see a repeat, especially from what we've seen so far this year. The Bulldogs coming off the back of a pretty gallant defeat over Geelong, but I guess questions have to be asked of how they weren't able to really penetrate Geelong's weak in midfield at the moment. And as for Essendon, I think it was just a good old-fashioned reality check against Port Adelaide last week. They tried to bring their strengths to the table of, one of the top clearance sides in the comp, but they just got eaten alive by Port Adelaide's star quality midfielders and didn't apply enough intensity and heat around the footy. I felt they were almost shell-shocked after quarter time. So they'll definitely want to fix things up back at Marvel Stadium this week and try and bring back a bit of the edge. So I definitely do expect Essendon to bounce back and play much better football and make this game competitive. But looking at the Bulldogs, they have been a side that has been really impressing me. I know they did lose against Geelong last week, but they're just a really classy side at the moment, Fortis Centre. But I feel like the Bulldogs have been a little bit better defensively, and especially when moving the footy. That's been some of the highlights too. And really getting on top of that midfield battle, I think the Bulldogs can definitely do against the Bombers here and just penetrate them off stoppage and off clearance. This is where the Bulldogs play their best footy, and inside 52 they've just got great marking targets in there, Aaron Norton and 𝐓𝐿𝐴 so I think they could really try and penetrate Essendon's defence. So yeah, I think the Bombers will turn up to play this one, could potentially cause a little bit of an upset, who knows, but I just think the Bulldogs too strong on paper and they're playing good footy at the moment. So I'll go the Bulldogs here, the Bulldogs by 20 points. For the Saturday games now, first one up, we've got GWS hosting St Kilda at Manuka Oval down in Canberra. Now, the Giants don't usually play the greatest at Manuka Oval. I think they were finally able to get the monkey off the back with a win over Gold Coast last year, but usually they don't play their best footy at this venue, so it's a chance for the Saints to maybe try and cause a sneaky upset and give GWS the first loss of the season. But it's hard to see it from what we've seen so far this year. GWS looking like the best team in the competition, just one of 3 of the remaining undefeated teams. And I thought they had a really professional win last week against Gold Coast. They were challenged, they were pushed, especially in the midfield, and they were getting done by ball movement, but they were able to find an extra gear through the stars Fortis Centre like Toby Green and etc. Like Melbourne, I think they're a really well-oiled machine. They've just got a really good balance with strong team defence and also really strong ability to move the footy end to end. As for St Kilda, last week against Richmond, it looked like one of the worst first halves we have seen under the Ross Lyon tenure from last year onwards, but credit to them. I thought they were really able to adjust well after half time. They were able to lock the ball in their forward half and generate a lot of scores. So if they're able to show strong team defence and try and get the forward half footy going like we did see against Richmond, they could be a chance to push the GWS here. Maybe they are due for a loss to the Giants, but GWS, just looking at them at a whole, a really well-oiled machine, and I think they can really penetrate the Saints' defence with just that really classy ball movement and just a lot of dangerous weapons forward of centre. So going to be going with the Giants with this tip. I think they'll be too good for the Saints. We'll back them in and they'll win this one. Maybe a bit of a cagey affair. Ross Lyon tries and makes this one a close game. So we'll go GWS by 16 points. Next Saturday game, we have Carlton hosting the Adelaide Crows at Marvel Stadium. Just like GWS, Carlton are one of the other undefeated teams. And geez, off the back of a pretty controversial win last week, I felt as a whole they didn't really come to play and play their best football. I thought they got really eaten alive by those Fremantle mids. They weren't really clean enough from the coalface. They got smacked in clearance by 20. So they did get the win, but hopefully for Carlton's sake, they don't paper over the cracks with that win, because they need to get back to their strong clearance dominance, because when they are able to win a lot of footy in the middle, that's when they play their best footy. But credit to them with a really resilient win last week. What I've really liked about Carlton so far this year is we're seeing a lot more importance from those role players and those important cogs that really make the team run well. Players like Zach Williams back there, Jordan Boyd, etc. So I know they are coming into this game against the Adelaide side that's just really really in a rut at the moment. They have little to no confidence when moving the football, but they can't treat this game lightly at all. Because when looking at Adelaide, yes, they have had struggles moving the footy, especially forward to centre and just trading attacks in general, but they are a team that have been able to get on top of the midfield. They have no troubles actually extracting the footy out and getting it out of congestion. It's just going inside 50 has been the issue, and it's got to come. It's got to eventually happen that it finally clicks for Adelaide and they start to get the ball rolling with starting to win games. So could this be the week against Carlton? Could they get on top of that Blues midfield? They certainly can, but Carlton, especially at Marvel Stadium, I like to call it their playpen. They love to really put on a muck against opposition sides. So yeah, for me, I think the Blues will be too good for Adelaide here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Adelaide play much better, and this could be the week where they could really get on top and show much better ball movement. But I think overall, Carlton's defence has been really good. Like 𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐿𝐿 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐿 back in the side has just totally improved their defensive profile. Charlie Curnow was the hero last week with a lot of those contested marks. So I think at Marvel, the Blues will be too good here for Adelaide, and they'll win this game by 18 points. For the Saturday night games now, first one up, we have Gold Coast hosting the Hawks at Heritage Bank Stadium, or People's First Stadium, or Metricon, whatever you call it. It's at Gold Coast home ground. Now the Suns, I thought they were really impressive last week. They just got run over the top by much more just impressive and quality side of GWS. The Suns, I think defensively, they've been really good the last couple of weeks. They've been able to repel inside 50s quite well. And how about last week? The likes of Macca 𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼 were fantastic in the air. He had about 15 or 16 intercept possessions. They've thrown 𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼 back there for a bit of height and intercepting ability and kicking out of the fence, which I think has worked quite nicely. Sam Flanders also moved back there. So a bit of positional changes for Gold Coast as of late. Then when looking at Hawthorn, yes, they are yet to pick up their first win of the season. I think the biggest issue for the Hawks is just their inability to play four quarters. They're able to maybe start a game really badly, like last week against Collingwood, and also Geelong, looking like it's going to be a shellacking on the cards. But they've been able to adjust after a period of time, and for a patch, they have been playing some good footy when going inside 50, and they've been able to win midfield battles from here to there throughout games. So their midfield has improved, but the big question for Hawthorn is just, I think overall, their team defence and their inability to play four quarters. And Gold Coast, they usually play their best footy at home. They're a side that can really punish off clearance and the midfield too if they really get on top. So I think it's hard to go past the Suns here. And Hawthorn usually are not the greatest side interstate, but a gallant defeat against Collingwood last week. They adjusted really well, moving Hardwick forward. So if they're able to play more consistent footy, the win will come. But I just think against a stronger side of Gold Coast at home, it's going to be hard to knock them off. So Gold Coast pick up the win here. Hawthorn maybe for a patch or two get on top and maybe make this close, but the Suns will be too good in the midfield and run away with it and win by 28 points. And the other Saturday night game here, we've got a really intriguing matchup of Port Adelaide hosting the Fremantle Dockers at Adelaide Oval. 3 games in a row for Port Adelaide now at home. So yeah, this is another good chance to really flex their muscles at their home deck. Always a hard team to knock off at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide, it was a really strong win and just really impressive last week against Essendon. They really brought out the challenge at the start of this game after quarter time though. Port Adelaide, just with their midfield class of Rosie, Butters, Horn Francis, what a game he had. Just his ability to burst out of congestion was huge for the power. Plays forward of centre, like the likes of Finlayson and Dixon, and especially Geordie coming back. I think he kicked 2 goals or 3 goals. He looked really awesome too, and also really Rioli. They're just a really classy side going forward at the moment, Port Adelaide. But it's going to be tricky. Fremantle are currently, I'd say, the best defensive team in the competition. They didn't really allow, Carlton to move the ball freely or take a lot of marks inside 50. And also in the midfield, Fremantle have been good too. I think they've been really strong in being able to get the ball out of congestion. 𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿𝐼𝐿 hasn't been an absolute world beater like he has been the last few years, but he's been playing his role really well on getting that first footy, getting first possession and extracting out cleanly to the likes of Brayshaw, Sarong, and etc. And they've been also able to move the footy nicely end to end, Fremantle. It's just though, they have been unable to really punish too much when getting the ball outside of congestion, as they weren't able to score much against Carlton last week. So, yeah, still think the inexperienced and not as great of a forward line when comparing to the top teams has been their issue, Fremantle. But if they can really make this one a cagey affair against Port Adelaide, not allow them to score, not allow them to get on top of the midfield, they could pinch this one, the Dockers. But a confidence boosting win over Essendon last week will definitely get their ticker up, Port Adelaide, and another game at home. I think that power will be too strong. I just like in their midfield and plays, in that forward 50. So Port Adelaide get the win over Fremantle and dismantle their defence. So we'll go the pair to win this one by 21 points. And for the Sunday games now, first one up, we've got Geelong hosting North Melbourne at 𝐺𝐴 𝐸𝐴 𝐸𝐺 𝐻𝐿 Stadium. Jesus Christ, I'm an absolute comedian. But the 𝐶𝐴Ts undefeated at the moment, and they're playing some really good football. I think probably in the long term their issues will be their midfield, but they still have Guthrie out, they still have Dangerfield out. They're looking like one of the best teams in the comp when looking at their defence and their attack. Looking like one of the strongest defensive profiles at the moment, but where they're really getting it done is their ball movement and their forward half turnover game and just the class inside 50. I say this every week, but Brian Myers, Jeremy Cameron, just such selfless players at the moment when they do move it inside 50. And look at this, 100% on ESPN has currently tipped Geelong. No one's giving North a chance, and fair enough. I mean, North have been able to play some nice football here and there with their quick hand pass style, but they're just getting exposed off the turnover way too much. Their kicking and their ball skills were really poor against Brisbane last week, so it's hard to go against Geelong here. I think they're going to really eat them alive in that forward 50, and that's been definitely the issues for North Melbourne. So I think the ball will be living in Geelong's forward half for the majority of this game, and the Cats will win this well by 45 points. And the final game of the round, just the 8 games this week with the Swans and the Pies having the bye. We have West Coast hosting the Tigers at Optus Stadium. Now, always this is just a game where you see West Coast, you tip against them, but geez, they were really impressive against the Swans last week. I felt they have been slightly improving their game a little bit, and we saw that. It was evident against the Swans. Their midfielders are starting to work really nicely now with the likes of 𝐼𝐻𝐿 and Tim Kelly. Harley Reid had a breakout game. How many broken tackles did he have? None of the Swans players could tackle him. He's just so strong in the hips and his core strength is fantastic. But they were able to really bring the heat collectively as a side. They brought the pressure against the Swans, and they did struggle, the Swannies, in that first half because they weren't allowed, the Eagles weren't allowing the Swans to move the footy freely. So if they can do something similar to Richmond and maybe try and get on top of that midfield, they could cause the Tigers a bit of havoc. I think the biggest question for West Coast is, are they able to sustain it for 4 quarters, especially against the side of Richmond, who have been really impressive for a team that's only picked up 1 win. They kicked off really well against the Saints last week, were able to move the footy end-to-end really nicely, and their midfield has been improving too. So I'm interested to see if West Coast can sort of replicate that first half like they were able to against Sydney last week. Their intercepting game was great too, with the likes of Barris and especially Jeremy McGovern. He's looking like an All-Australian form, so see how the Eagles go, but, you just can't tip West Coast at the moment. You probably, the only chance you give West Coast is maybe against like a North Melbourne. So Richmond will be too strong here for the Eagles. Maybe they start strong West Coast, but the Tigers will run over the top and win this one by 39 points. So ladies and gentlemen, there are my tips for round 5 of the 2024 AFL season. Feel free to comment down below and let me know who you lot are going to be tipping this week. Still searching for my first 9 out of 9, so hopefully I can get it this week, but hopefully you did enjoy, and until next time, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.